After the ceremony, I stood in the reception hall, smiling at the cascade of compliments from friends and family. It was my wedding day, and everything was perfect, or at least it was supposed to be. The chandeliers sparkled above us, the luxurious decor screamed opulence, and Lorato, my new wife, had looked like a goddess in her gown. My heart swelled every time I looked at her, thinking, this is the woman I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. But even perfect days have cracks if you look closely enough. It started subtly. Lorato excused herself after the toasts, saying she needed to freshen up. I didn't think much of it at first. Weddings were long and tiring, and I figured she just needed a moment to herself. Guests were still mingling, so I tried to focus on chatting with my uncles and dodging my overexcited nieces who wanted to dance. But as time dragged on, I noticed something strange. Lorato hadn't come back. 15 minutes turned into 20. I glanced at my watch and frowned. Maybe she was fixing her makeup? But then why hadn't one of her bridesmaids gone with her? I scanned the room, looking for her friends. They were still chatting and laughing near the dessert table, clearly unbothered. My unease grew. I excused myself from the conversation I was pretending to pay attention to and approached Lorato's best friend, Zinle. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "Have you seen Lorato? She's been gone for a while." Zinle blinked at me, clearly caught off guard. "She said she was going to the bathroom," she replied with a shrug. "Maybe she's just taking her time. You know how women are." She laughed, but her words didn't settle the gnawing in my gut. Taking a deep breath, I decided to look for her myself. As I walked toward the bathrooms, the hallway felt unnaturally quiet. The sound of laughter and clinking glasses faded behind me. My shoes echoed against the marble floor as I neared the private bathroom area reserved for the bride and groom. Something felt off. The door to the ladies' bathroom was slightly ajar, but there was no sign of Lorato. I hesitated for a moment, then turned toward the private couple's restroom at the end of the hall. Just as I approached, I heard a muffled sound, laughter, low and intimate. My heart skipped a beat, and not in the good way. I paused outside the door, straining to hear. The laughter grew louder, followed by hushed whispers I couldn't quite make out. My chest tightened, and 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. What was going on? Why was someone laughing in our private bathroom? I reached for the door handle, my hand trembling. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst out of my chest. With a deep breath, I turned the knob and pushed the door open. Nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. The scene hit me like a slap in the face. Lorato stood there, pressed against the wall, her hands gripping Pastor Mjisa's arms. His lips were inches from hers, their intimate embrace unmistakable. Time froze. My world shattered in an instant. "Lorato?" My voice cracked, barely above a whisper. They both turned to look at me, their faces pale, their guilt written all over them. For a moment, no one spoke. The air felt thick, suffocating, like all the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. "What the hell is this?" I finally managed to choke out. My words echoed in the small space, but neither of them answered. I stood there, my chest heaving, as the truth of what I was seeing sank in. My wife, my pastor, on my wedding day. And just like that, the perfect day I had dreamed of was gone, replaced by a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen in the doorway, staring at the two people I trusted most, Lorato, the woman I had just vowed to spend my life with, and Pastor Mjiza, the man who had officiated those vows barely an hour ago. My mind was racing, but my body wouldn't move. I felt like a stranger watching my life fall apart from a distance. "Thabo, Lorato began, but her voice faltered, the words dying in her throat. She quickly stepped away from him, smoothing down her dress like that would somehow erase what I had seen. The guilt on her face said everything she couldn't. Pastor Mjiza didn't even flinch. He straightened his shirt, his usual calm demeanor intact, as if this was some minor inconvenience rather than the betrayal it truly was. "Thabo," he said, his tone almost patronizing, "this is not what it looks like." I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that didn't even feel like it came from me. "Not what it looks like?" My voice cracked with anger, disbelief, and something else, something that felt a lot like pain. "Then tell me, Pastor, what exactly does it look like?" Neither of them answered. Lorato was staring at the floor, her hands twisting the fabric of her dress. Pastor Mckeezy opened his mouth, but I didn't give him the chance to speak. I stepped into the room, letting the door slam behind me. Was this the plan all along? I asked, my voice rising. You stood in front of everyone today. You blessed our union, told us to cherish and respect each other. And now I find you here with my wife, on my wedding day. My voice cracked at the last word, the weight of it crushing me. Thabo, please just calm down, Lerato pleaded, finally looking up at me. Her eyes were wide, tears brimming in them, but I couldn't tell if they were tears of regret or fear. Calm down? I repeated, my voice cold. You want me to calm down after this? I gestured wildly between the two of them. Explain it to me, Lerato. Explain what I just saw. She hesitated, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't find the words. That hesitation was the final nail in the coffin. If there was an explanation, surely she'd have given it by now. But there was none. There was only silence, guilt, and the overwhelming sense of betrayal hanging in the air. Pastor Mckeezy finally spoke. Thabo, this was a moment of weakness. It shouldn't have happened. A moment of weakness? I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You're supposed to be a man of God, a pillar of morality, and yet here you are, destroying my life in a bathroom. His calm facade cracked slightly at my words, but he didn't reply. He looked down as if acknowledging his guilt would make it better. It didn't. I turned back to Lerato. Was this going on before today? Before we got married? My voice was quieter now, but the intensity remained. She flinched at the question, her silence cutting deeper than any answer she could have given me. My chest tightened, anger and heartbreak warring inside me. I couldn't stay there a second longer. Without waiting for an answer, I turned and stormed out of the bathroom. My vision blurred as I walked back to the reception hall, where our guests were still celebrating, oblivious to the betrayal I had just uncovered. The laughter, the music, the clinking of glasses, it all felt like mockery. I wanted to scream to tell everyone what had just happened, but I couldn't. I didn't know how to explain it, and even if I did, I wasn't sure anyone would believe me. Instead, I made my way to the corner of the room and sat down, my head in my hands. My mind replayed the scene over and over, each time more painful than the last. How could this have happened? How could the woman I loved and the man I respected most betray me like this? And how was I supposed to face the rest of this night, much less the rest of my life? The reality of it all began to sink in. My wedding day, the day I had dreamed about for months, was ruined. My marriage was over before it had even begun, and the people I thought I could trust most had shattered my heart in ways I never thought possible. The celebration carried on around me, but for me, the day was over. The only thing I could feel was the crushing weight of betrayal. I sat there in the corner of the reception hall, staring blankly at the polished marble floor. My mind felt like a whirlwind of anger, heartbreak, and disbelief. Around me, the celebration carried on, guests laughing, clinking their glasses, and dancing under the golden chandeliers. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's wedding, not my own. People passed by, oblivious to the storm inside me. A few guests approached, smiling and congratulating me, their faces glowing with happiness. I forced a smile in return, but it felt like a mask, heavy and unnatural. How could I smile when my world was crumbling? My sister Namsa eventually noticed me sitting alone. She approached, her face full of concern. Thabo, she said softly, leaning down to meet my eyes. What's wrong? Why aren't you with Lerato? I opened my mouth to answer, but the words got caught in my throat. What could I say? That my wife and our pastor were wrapped up in a betrayal so deep I could barely breathe? That the woman I loved had destroyed our marriage before it even began? My silence must have said enough because Namsa's expression darkened. She placed a hand on my shoulder, her voice sharper now. Thabo, what happened? Talk to me. I shook my head, unwilling to unravel the truth in front of everyone. Not now, I mumbled, later. But Namsa was never one to let things go easily. She straightened up, her eyes scanning the room like a hawk. Where's Lerato? She asked, her tone laced with suspicion. And where's that pastor? Her words made my stomach churn. I hadn't thought about where they'd gone after I stormed out of the bathroom. Were they still there, trying to piece together their excuses? Or worse, had they returned to the party, pretending like nothing had happened? As if on cue, Lerato appeared at the entrance of the hall. Her dress was immaculate, her makeup flawless, and her smile forced. She moved through the crowd with practiced ease, stopping to greet guests like the perfect bride. But I could see it, the tightness in her jaw, the stiffness in her shoulders. She was trying too hard. And I knew why. When her eyes found mine, her steps faltered. For a brief second, guilt flashed across her face before she composed herself. She walked toward me, her smile unwavering, as if she could will everything back to normal with sheer determination. "Thabo," she said, her voice low but steady. "Can we talk?" Namsa's gaze darted between us, her brows knitting together. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice rising slightly. "Not now," Lorado said quickly, her eyes fixed on me. "Please, Thabo." I stood slowly, my movements heavy, like I was dragging a weight behind me. Every part of me wanted to yell, to expose her, to tell everyone in that room what kind of woman she was. But instead, I nodded and followed her to the hallway, away from the prying eyes and curious whispers. Once we were alone, she turned to face me, her composure cracking. "Thabo, please," she began, her voice trembling. "It wasn't what you think, it was a mistake." A mistake?" I interrupted, my voice low but cutting. "You're telling me that what I saw, that you and him were just a mistake?" Tears filled her eyes, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not this time. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered. "It just happened." Her words only made my anger flare. "You didn't mean to hurt me?" I repeated, stepping closer. "You did this on our wedding day, Lorado. Our wedding day. Do you have any idea what you've done?" She reached for my hand, but I pulled away, the betrayal too raw, too fresh. "Thabo, I love you," she pleaded. "Please, just let me explain." I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "No, Lorado, you don't love me. If you did, you wouldn't have done this." Her tears fell freely now, but I couldn't bring myself to care. I turned and walked away, not leaving her standing there, sobbing quietly. For the first time that day, I realized the truth. The woman I thought I knew was a stranger, and the life I had planned with her was gone before it even began. Tense, off, like the buzz of a coming storm. People were still smiling, still laughing, but there was a ripple of curiosity beneath it all. I could feel their eyes on me, quick glances, quiet whispers. The cracks in the perfect day were starting to show. I made my way to the corner of the hall again, desperate for some space to think. Namsa joined me not long after, her expression unreadable as she handed me a glass of water. "You're not okay," she said plainly, sitting down beside me. "And I don't believe for a second that everything's fine. Spill it." I wanted to tell her. I wanted to unload the mess that was boiling inside me, but the words wouldn't come. How could I explain what I had seen without breaking apart completely? Instead, I shook my head and took a sip of the water, pretending to focus on the crowd. It didn't matter. The truth always has a way of leaking out, and tonight was no different. I noticed Zinle first, huddled in a tight circle with a few other bridesmaids. They spoke in hushed tones, their faces a mix of shock and fascination. Every now and then, one of them would glance toward me or the hallway Lorado had disappeared into. My chest tightened. They knew. Somehow, they knew. As if to confirm my fears, one of the groomsmen approached me, his steps hesitant. "Thabo," he said, his voice low. "Everything okay? I mean, you and Lorado, you're good, right?" His question felt like a slap. I didn't answer. Instead, I stared at him, hoping the weight of my silence would send him away. He shifted awkwardly before muttering, "If you need anything, let me know," and retreating back into the crowd. But it didn't stop there. The whispers spread like wildfire, jumping from one table to the next. I could hear snippets of conversations, words like bathroom, pastor, and bride weaving through the air like smoke. My face burned with shame, but I refused to look up. I couldn't face them. Not now. Then came the moment I dreaded most. Lorado walked back into the hall, her face pale but composed, as if she could pretend nothing had happened. She moved gracefully, stopping to talk to guests and forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I hated how effortlessly she seemed to slip back into the role of the perfect bride, while I sat there, broken. But the whispers followed her too. People glanced her way, their conversations halting whenever she got too close. The room was filled with an undercurrent of judgment, though no one dared say it aloud. It was all in the stolen looks, the quick exchanges behind hands, the way some guests began to edge toward the door, as if the scandal was contagious. Namsa leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. They're talking, Thabo. Everyone's talking. Whatever it is you're trying to hide, it's already out. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I clenched my fists, trying to hold myself together. I didn't say anything, I murmured, my voice tight. I didn't. You didn't have to, she replied, her tone grim. Secrets like this, they don't stay buried. Not here. I glanced around the room, my heart sinking as I saw the truth of her words. The celebration had turned into something else entirely, a stage for gossip, speculation, and quiet judgment. My wedding, the day I had once dreamed of, was now a spectacle for everyone to pick apart. And the worst part? It wasn't over yet. The weight of the whispers pressed down on me, suffocating. Each glance, each hushed conversation felt like a dagger to my pride. The guests weren't just here to celebrate anymore. They were watching, waiting for the full story to unravel. And it would, I realized. There was no stopping it now. My father was the first to approach. His imposing figure cut through the crowd with ease, his face a mix of confusion and anger. Thabo, he said, his voice low but firm. What's going on? Why are people whispering? Where's Lorado? The question stabbed at the wound still raw in my chest. I opened my mouth, but no words came. How could I tell him that the woman I'd just promised to love and honor had betrayed me in the most humiliating way? That the pastor he'd personally chosen to bless our union was part of it? Before I could respond, my mother appeared beside him, her face pale. Thabo, we need answers, she said, gripping my arm. People are saying things. She hesitated, glancing nervously toward the crowd. I felt my throat tighten. It's nothing, I muttered, my voice barely audible. Just rumors. My father's eyes narrowed. Rumors don't cause this kind of stir, he snapped. Tell me the truth. Before I could reply, Lorado's parents arrived, their expressions a mix of concern and indignation. Her mother stepped forward, her tone sharp. Thabo, what's going on? Lorado said you accused her of something ridiculous. My jaw clenched as anger flared in my chest. Ridiculous? I repeated, my voice rising. She didn't tell you what happened, did she? Lorado's father frowned, his eyes darting between me and his wife. Thabo, whatever it is, we can handle it privately. Don't let this ruin the day. Ruin the day, I laughed bitterly. It's already ruined. What are you talking about? Lorado's mother demanded, her voice rising. Our daughter has done nothing wrong. If there's a misunderstanding, we can clear it up. She was with him, I interrupted, my words cutting through the air like a knife. The pastor, I caught them in the bathroom. Silence. Deafening silence, the kind that made the air feel heavy, like the room was holding its breath. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the explosion came. What? My father roared, his voice echoing across the room. Guests turned to stare, their curiosity now blatant. What are you saying, Thabo? It's true, I said, my voice trembling with anger. I saw them with my own eyes. Lorado's mother shook her head violently, her face twisting with disbelief. No, you're lying. Lorado would never. Ask her yourself, I snapped, pointing toward Lorado, who stood frozen near the doorway. Her face was pale, her eyes darting between us like a trapped animal. All eyes turned to her. The murmurs grew louder, the room buzzing with tension. For a moment she looked like she might deny it, might try to talk her way out of it. But the guilt in her eyes betrayed her. Her voice faltered, barely a whisper. I'm sorry. That was all it took. The room erupted. My father's voice boomed over everyone else's, shouting about disgrace and betrayal. Lorado's mother burst into tears, clutching her husband's arm as he tried and failed to calm her. The guests, no longer bothering to hide their curiosity, leaned in to catch every word. Namsa grabbed my arm, pulling me aside. Thabo, this isn't the place, she hissed. Take this outside before it gets worse. Worse? I laughed bitterly. How could it get worse? But as I looked at the chaos unfolding around me, families shouting, guests gawking, and Lorado standing there, tears streaming down her face, I realized she was right. This wasn't just my nightmare anymore. It was everyone's spectacle. I turned and walked out, leaving the shouting behind. I didn't know where I was going, but I needed air. I needed to breathe. And for the first time that night, I realized I wasn't just angry. I was devastated. I stepped outside, the cool night air hitting my face like a slap. The noise from the reception hall faded behind me, but the weight of it all followed, clinging to my chest like a vice. I leaned against the railing overlooking the manicured gardens, my head in my hands. How had it come to this? How had everything fallen apart in just a few hours? I thought about the vows Lorado and I had exchanged earlier that day. Promises of love, loyalty, and forever. The memory felt like a cruel joke now, a mockery of the life I thought we were building together. My hands clenched into fists at the thought of her with him, of their whispered betrayal just steps away from where I stood, oblivious and proud. The humiliation was unbearable. The sound of footsteps behind me broke my thoughts. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Her presence was as heavy as the guilt she carried. Thabo, Lorado's voice was soft, trembling. Please, can we talk? I turned slowly, the sight of her sparking both anger and sadness within me. Her makeup was smudged from tears, her once perfect hair slightly disheveled. She looked nothing like the glowing bride who had walked down the aisle just hours ago. For a moment, I wanted to reach out to comfort her. But then I remembered, she was the reason for my pain. What could you possibly have to say? I asked, my voice low but sharp. You've already said enough with your actions. Her lip quivered, and she stepped closer. Thabo, I made a mistake. I didn't mean for this to happen. A mistake? I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. Sleeping with our pastor on our wedding day, that's not a mistake, Lorado. That's a choice, a deliberate, selfish choice. Tears streamed down her face now, but they did nothing to soften my resolve. I was confused, she whispered. He was there for me when I needed someone. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything? I repeated, incredulous. Do you hear yourself? You betrayed me. You betrayed us. And you did it with him, the man who was supposed to bless our marriage. She reached out to touch my arm, but I stepped back, the distance between us feeling symbolic of the emotional chasm she had created. I didn't want to hurt you, she said, her voice breaking. I love you, Thabo. Please, believe me. I stared at her. The woman I had once believed was my soulmate. If you loved me, I said, my voice trembling with anger and hurt, you wouldn't have done this. You wouldn't have destroyed everything before it even began. She crumbled, collapsing onto the nearby bench, her sobs filling the silence between us. For a moment I felt a flicker of pity, but it was quickly extinguished by the memory of what I had seen. The image of her with him was burned into my mind, impossible to erase. I turned away, staring out at the gardens, the distant lights of the city twinkling like a cruel reminder of the life I'd envisioned. A life that was now nothing more than a shattered dream. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said finally, my voice quiet but firm. And I don't know if I even want to. Her sobs grew louder, but I didn't look back. The weight of her betrayal was too much to bear. I stayed there, rooted to the spot, as the night stretched on, feeling the pieces of my life slipping further and further out of reach. I stood outside for what felt like hours, staring at nothing and replaying everything in my mind. The night air did little to calm me, and the memory of Lorado's tears brought no comfort. My world felt too broken to salvage, and for a moment I thought about walking away, not just from the reception, but from everything. But then I saw him. Pastor Makiza stepped out of the hall, his face calm, almost serene, as if he hadn't just torn my life apart. He walked toward me slowly, his hands clasped behind his back, his clerical collar still pristine. The audacity of it made my blood boil. Thabo, he said softly, stopping a few feet away. His voice carried that same calm authority it always did, the one I used to respect. Now it felt like an insult. We need to talk. I turned to face him fully, my fists clenched at my sides. Talk? I spat, my voice rising. What could you possibly have to say to me? He sighed, looking down for a moment before meeting my gaze. I owe you an apology. What happened was unacceptable. It was a lapse in judgment. A lapse in judgment? I cut him off, stepping closer. You call sleeping with my wife a lapse in judgment? You, the man who stood in front of me today, blessed our marriage, and told me to cherish her? His composure faltered slightly, but he held his ground. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said, his tone measured. But I want you to know that I regret my actions deeply. I failed you, Thabo. I failed both of you. The words felt hollow, like a rehearsed speech meant to absolve him of guilt. My anger surged. Regret? I snarled. You regret getting caught. Don't stand here and pretend this was a moment of weakness. This was deliberate. You knew exactly what you were doing. He flinched at the accusation, but he didn't deny it. That silence was all the confirmation I needed. You've ruined everything, I continued, my voice trembling with rage. My marriage, my trust, my faith in you, all of it gone. Do you even understand the damage you've caused? He took a step forward, his expression softening. Thabo, I am truly sorry. I will step down from the church, resign immediately. I will make amends. Amends? I laughed bitterly. You think resigning is enough? That walking away will fix this? I shook my head, my anger mixing with the deep ache in my chest. You've destroyed lives, Mkize. Mine, Leratos, even your own. He looked down, his shoulders sagging under the weight of his guilt, or at least the weight he wanted me to see. For a moment I wondered if he truly felt remorse, or if this was just another performance, like the sermons he delivered every Sunday. I'll leave, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. I'll go now and stay away, but please, believe me when I say I am sorry. I stared at him, searching his face for sincerity, but all I saw was a man who had taken everything from me. Get out of